BVC Bunclody Vocational College.
Hello first years and parents of first years, you are very welcome to this podcast/video where we will be explaining in detail the subjects that are available here in Bunclody Vocational College. One teacher from each subject department has kindly offered to explain their subject. We hope that this, along with further information that will be provided in the future, will help you make an informative choice in choosing your subjects for next year. After you come back from midterm, your son or daughter will have to decide what subjects they wish to study for the Junior Cert. Unless they are exempt, Irish, English, Maths and History are all mandatory subjects, so students have to study them. So what does the process look like? The process for picking your subjects takes place in 2 stages. Stage 1, you will be given a talk by Miss O'Toole and you will get subject option forms 1 to fill in, and it has to be signed by a parent or guardian. You write the option subjects you most want to take from 1 to 5. Number 1, the subject you most want to take, and so on. You must take time filling in your subjects and writing them, as the information from these forms are put on an option band's computer program. This program then formulates the option bands that will be given out in stage 2. Stage 2, then Miss O'Toole will meet with the class groups again, and she will give each student subject option form 2 to fill in, and it has to be signed by a parent or guardian. This form will have 4 option bands on it. With these lines and subjects, you will pick one subject from each line or band. If there are any issues with the bands, students will have an opportunity to speak with Miss O'Toole or myself, Mr. Porter, to meet some of the teachers where they will explain in a bit more detail what their subject is like in 2nd and 3rd year. The first teacher I spoke with was Miss Cody, the woodwork teacher, where I asked her to explain what woodwork is like in 2nd and 3rd year.
The outline of the subject anyway would be, basically there's 2 sections to it. There's the practical and there's the theory. The theory involves the textbook and learning about things such as all the different tools and the names of the parts of the tools, learning about the growth of trees and parts of trees, learning about manufactured boards and wood science and wood processing practices as well, but for a page rather than actually carrying out the practices. Then the practical, which is the part that people tend to prefer, that's where they start off at a basic level using the hand tools to mark out timber, and then we move on from the marking out to the processing using the saws and the chisels, and we create little projects. And we have, when they move on to 2nd and 3rd year, then they have more time. It's only 1 hour a week in 1st year, but when they move on to 2nd year, then they get more time to give over to the practical, and they end up with little items that they have made and that they can use at home. The new junior cycle now involves a good bit of design of their own projects. Up to now it used to be, or up to recently, it used to be the case where we'd give them a drawing and they'd go and make what's in the drawing. Now they have more of an input into the design of what they make. And the projects get a little bit, I suppose there's more detail in them as they go along. Just gradually, they won't realise it, but gradually they end up then in 3rd year where they design an item completely from scratch themselves, and they have a folder to go with it. So in 3rd year, as regards the marking of it and everything, where the marks go for woodwork, there's 70% for this project of your overall junior cycle grade, 70% for that, and 30% for the exam and the theory.
So 70% is project.
Yeah.
And wow.
So that design and that the creativity involved in that is crucial. You know, the beauty of having their own design for that end of it is, as they learn the different skills up along in 1st and 2nd year, they then include whichever ones they like best. You know, so if they were doing wood turning, for example, and it didn't go well for them or they didn't like it, then they wouldn't design a project with that in it. Or if they loved wood turning and they enjoyed it and wanted to do more.
There is a lot of practical, but is there other type of, skills then in 2nd and 3rd year?
Well, mainly the design and the practical skills, really. You know, that's. And then, of course, in the theory section, we learn now more than ever, we'll be placing more emphasis on the whole environmental aspect of woods, using timber and preserving our rainforests, and we'd have a role to play in it as woodwork users of wood. We have to, I tend to focus now in recent years a lot on the fact that we're using renewable timber that's coming from managed forests rather than the rainforests.
Say if there was a first year out there that mightn't be that confident, like making things with their hands, like would that be an issue to do?
Well, you see, especially now with their own design,
I guess.
Yeah, you could pick it up, but they would. I mean, there's certain basics that we need to get right, but we create projects that would suit, like they would to create. In second and third year, they have an input into the design of what they make. So we divert their, we design something to suit whatever they found best in first year. But some people will struggle with it. It's difficult to make things and be neat, tidy with pencil lines and have accuracy and all that. It tends often to be the case that some people that love art do not like the graph and the woodwork, the restraint of the measurements and the keeping inside lines, and that they tend to prefer the art. And then others love both. It's not for everyone, but still, it's very. You don't have to worry if you're not really. If you think you're never going to be able to make a big fancy piece of furniture or be really totally 100% accurate, you can still be very successful in woodwork.
Well, Miss Cody, thanks very much for taking the time to talk about your subject. I really appreciate it. That was Miss Cody, our woodwork teacher here in Bunclody Vocational College. Woodworkers typically work for themselves as independent contractors for construction companies or for wood product manufacturers and distributors. They can work for companies that create custom furniture designs or alongside architects and engineers to build a new home or office. Examples of careers in this sector are carpenters, cabinet makers, and even construction managers. There are many construction management courses in Ireland, with Carlow IT and TU Dublin being popular choices for students in Wexford. Next, I speak with Miss Doyle, our art teacher here in Bunclody Vocational College. Hi Miss Doyle, thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
So Miss Doyle, can you just explain to the first year what second and third year is like for art, and what type of things will second and third years be studying?
Okay, so art is now known as visual art, and the reason it's known for visual art is, I suppose, we're looking at art in a broader term. So we're looking at art, craft and design.
Okay.
So during second and third year, students will get the opportunity to work in all three of those strands. So they'll get an opportunity to delve into art. A lot of it is about exploring and experimenting, and for students trialling and learning through their experimentation and their trial.
And how is it assessed in the junior cert then? Is there CBAs or how does it work?
So for the junior cycle for visual art, there is a classroom-based assessment in second year. Again, it's where they bring an idea through a process and realise a finished piece, and that is generally done in the second half of second year. And the window can be decided by the teacher and the students. It will also be decided as to which strand, so whether that will be an art, craft or design. So within the 2 CBAs that they will complete, we will look at all 3 areas, so students will get to experience all 3 areas. The second classroom-based assessment will take place in third year, and it happens again around just after. I suppose the benefits of that is that the student is supported as best they can by the teacher in completing their work.
So there's a big practical element. And what about the theory then? Would there be a lot of theory as well? Or
so the theory is integrated with it. So there's no written assessment of visual art. So the theory is interlinked with what they're doing. So it'll be interlinked in regards to the research, the discussions that happen in class. A lot of people come into maybe art thinking that maybe they're not necessarily good at drawing. It is based across 3 areas. So I've mentioned there that there's art, craft and design. Drawing can be used for different means, and it's not always people think, I suppose, that drawing is about drawing a pretty picture, but there are different types of drawings that we use in the classroom. So I think a lot of people maybe don't put a value on what happens in the art room, that often it can be seen as that we just create pretty pictures, which we often do. But as in regards to the benefits of the subject, in regards to the creativity, students are given a space to express themselves. It's very much a student-led subject, so the students are the drivers of their ideas. It's a safe space for students, and it develops their ability to be able to problem solve. I'm not saying that art isn't difficult, it is. It's difficult in regards to it takes perseverance, it takes you to manage yourself, but these are all the key skills that we're looking to develop in our young people as we bring them through their junior cycle.
Okay, well, Miss Doyle, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure the first years will learn a lot from this interview, so thanks very much for taking the time to do this.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Miss Doyle. If you enjoy art, you will discover which area you would like to pursue as a career as you progress in school. You can study many different types of art in college, such as applied art, which includes subjects like interior design and product design, art education, and a career that's becoming very popular with students, which is digital art. That includes 3D animation, computer animation, graphic design, and many more. The next teacher I spoke to was Mr. Laidlaw, our history teacher. Hello, Mr. Laidlaw.
Hello, Mr. Porter, how are you?
Not too bad, Mr. Laidlaw. I know history it's compulsory for first years.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you would like to tell the first years a little bit about your subject, what it's like, what they'll be studying in second year.
Yep, no problem. History, what would you say? History first and third year is a mixture of like Irish history and world and European history. In second year, we'll study things like the American Revolutions, plantations in Ireland, the Renaissance. In third year, then you go on and study more like 20th century history, so the Troubles in Ireland, the Cold War, the First and Second World War, and then you also do like 2 CBAs or classroom-based assessments, projects, I suppose. One in first year and one in second year. No, excuse me, one in second year, one in third year. Second year one is a local history one. You get to pick a person, place or thing anywhere in your area you want to do a history project on. There are examples of first or second year CBAs up in the corridor in the first year area. There's a history department sort of, what would you say, notice board.
Okay.
And you go and have a look at that if you want. And then the third year CBA is more about a person, a famous person from history outside of Ireland is the key, and it can be anybody from the past of historical significance, so maybe a Gandhi or a Martin Luther King or trying to think Marie Curie or somebody that the student themselves might be more interested in.
So they would kind of go away, research it, and then...
My main job is to facilitate them doing the projects in both cases, so give them some guidance, maybe if their topic at first is too broad, narrow it down, help them find sources, because that's the other important part of history at Junior Cert now, is that you have sources to back up what you're saying about the person, place or thing.
Yes.
Second year CBA or the person in the third year CBA. So
how is history examined then, Mr. Laidlaw?
Well, again, so history is examined. It's there's been a few changes in the last couple of years. There is about 10% of your final mark goes from the CBAs, and again there's different styles of questions. There's document based questions where you might be given a piece to read or a picture to look at and you have to answer questions on that, or there are slightly longer extended answer questions where you might be asked to write about an event from history that you have studied to do with a revolution, or a person from history to do with the Reformation.
Yes.
So there may be the old-fashioned terms for them would be like essay questions or people in history questions. But, that's the new junior cycle.
Okay, very good.
Broken down.
I think you covered a lot there, Mr. Laidlaw. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the first years, or usually I say like if any advice to first years, but they have to choose history, so
they do have to choose history, but I suppose it is I just find history is a great subject because it's a gateway into some and history, it's a hard sell as well when you're trying to get kids to do it, say for Leaving Cert, but like history does have lots of great applications outside the workplace.
Absolutely.
Or outside of college or school, in the workplace. And jobs like politics and economics and teaching. People, they do look for people with history degrees because it's about recognising patterns in time or trends.
And there's so many new courses now, like history courses as well.
And you often do history with another subject, so it's not just history on its own. You could do history and sociology like I did, or
I know there's a 6th year this morning, and he wants to do history in English, and he wants to be a history and English teacher. Do you know that's
there you go.
Okay, well, Mr. Laidlaw, thanks very much for giving up your time to talk to me today.
Thanks for talking and asking the questions, Mr. Porter.
No problem.
Brilliant.
Talk soon.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Laidlaw. Many students choose history at third level due to an immense interest in the subject. They go on to learn a wide range of highly employable skills, such as high levels of critical thinking, adaptability, and a range of so-called soft skills to meet the demands of the workplace. Students generally choose history along with another subject in college, such as history and law, history and politics, or history with a foreign language. History graduates are found in a range of professions including accountancy, finance and banking, the charity sector, civil service, museums, industrial relations, and even law. The next teacher I spoke to was Mr. O'Leary, our science teacher. How are you, Mr. O'Leary?
I'm not too bad, Mr. Porter. Thanks a million.
Very good. So we're just going to talk a little bit about junior cert science. Mr. O'Leary, can you just tell the first years a little bit about second and third year science and what to expect if they go on to study it?
Okay. Unfortunately, in first year they don't really get much of a look at what science is. They only get one class in the week. In second year and in third year there'll be much more science. If you choose science for your junior cert, we'll be doing far more practical work than we probably get to do in first year. The four topics in junior cert science are chemistry, biology, physics and earth and space. Earth and space has just been added in the last few years as part of the new junior cycle. So biology is the study of living things. And at the moment, things like global warming and ecology and extinction events and stuff, that's quite a common theme in the world at the moment. So understanding biology is quite important in terms of knowing what we need to do to make sure this planet is safe for us to live on. Chemistry is about chemicals and the reactions, so various different types of fuel, for example. Like again, back to global warming, we can talk about electric cars versus petrol cars and the chemistry of petrol and the chemistry of combustion and how that works. Physics then would be more about forces and energy and measurement. So I've just spent some time talking with the first years about density. So we'll be moving on in second and third year onto things like electricity and electronics and how they work. And then there's earth and space. Obviously there's no practical part for earth and space because we don't have the budget. So we'll be studying the planets and the solar system and galaxies and asteroids and all sorts of interesting stuff along those lines. Then at the end in second year there'll be a CBA project, and in third year there's a second CBA project, and the teachers will talk you through those. They're quite simple and they're very interesting. If you get into them, you should find them very interesting.
And those CBAs, Mr. O'Leary, are they practical kind of based CBAs, or how are they assessed?
One of each. So there's one where you have to design your own experiment. Now a simpler experiment is always better than a more complicated experiment in that situation. So designing a very simple experiment, carrying out the experiment and then recording the results would be a CBA. The other CBA then would be a research. So you would choose maybe a scientist from history or from Ireland or from some field that you might be interested in and look at what they did. So it's more of a research project to figure out what this person has done for science. Both ends of it, you get a bit of research and a little bit of practical. Well, absolutely. I mean, science is real life. That's what I keep saying to my students in the class. Everything we do in science can be related back to real life in some way, whether it's the breakfast that you had this morning before you came to school and we just discuss what happens to that breakfast in your body and how it turns into energy. But I think science is an important subject for people, not just academically. I think it's important for people to understand how things work in the world around them, because it leads to confusion when people don't. And we saw the issues around vaccination, and people didn't understand what a vaccine was or why we needed to take it. People didn't seem to understand why we needed to wear masks, but there's very clear evidence to explain that. But even into the future, things like genetic engineering, people will need to understand what genetically engineered foods are and what genetically engineered people are in order for them to figure out whether we think it's a good idea or not. Yes. So if there's an election or a referendum in 10 years' time, or whether we should allow genetic engineering to happen in this country, people should know what it means so they can have an informed opinion on whether they think it should be allowed or not.
Yes,
so there's all sorts of things coming down the line in terms of fuel. Electric cars are a thing now, but it's very possible that hydrogen fuel cars may be a thing in the future. The world's changing much quicker now than it ever has before, and understanding the basic principles of science allows you to understand what's happening. Like mobile phone technology, we don't understand what it's doing to us at the moment, but we need to be able to figure that out so we can avoid damage and problems in the future. Understanding science is vitally important in my opinion, and everyone should study science, at least to junior cert. And after that, hopefully, you'll find it so interesting that you might like to continue it on to Leaving Cert also.
Like there's some college courses that you need science for, you know.
Absolutely.
Like if you're thinking going down like the medical route or like that, like you have to have science.
So you need to do your research before you pick your subjects. Then
exactly.
Oh, it's an excellent subject. It's very broad, and once you pick science at junior cert, that can branch into physics and chemistry in this school, biology in this school, but there's so many other areas of science that you can branch into. Medicine, physiotherapy, research, designing mobile phones is science. All that's science. It's all science.
Okay, Mr. Leary, so finally, would you like to, say out to the freshers who might want a bit more information? Obviously, they can talk to you or the science teachers here.
Well, myself and Miss Brennan are the two first year science teachers this year, as far as I know, but any of the science teachers would be more like we're science nerds. And I am more than happy to speak to anyone about science at any given time. In fact, sometimes I speak to people about science even when they don't want me to, but I don't mind because I like to share the information with them. So, yeah, come to me, speak to me. The internet's full of fantastic resources for science and science careers. If you wanted to look at possible careers in science, myself and Miss Brennan could help. Obviously, you could help with that as well. Or the internet's a great place to go and check those things out.
Okay, Mr. Leary, I think that's it. Thanks very much for giving up your time.
Thanks very much. Thanks a million.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. If you are applying for anything in the engineering, medical, paramedical, physiotherapy, human nutrition, pharmacy, medical laboratory, veterinary, nursing or science areas, you need to have a pass in at least one science subject. Course requirements should be checked on an individual basis. 2 science subjects are required for dentistry, pharmacy, medicine, medical and health science, physiotherapy, human health and disease, chemical science, geography and geoscience, physical science, all need at least 2 passes, so I do recommend choosing at least one science subject just in case you want to choose one of these in the future. The next teacher I spoke to was Miss Johnson, our music teacher. Why should first years pick music as a subject?
Well, I suppose the new junior cycle music programme is based on accessibility and relevance, so it allows us to learn music by referencing to music that we hear every day. It opens our minds to other music cultures and genres that we may never have heard before either. I suppose we get to learn about the music industry and the music business and all the jobs and things that we can do with music, and we can learn how to become literate in music by being able to read, write and create music using computers, technology, programs such as MuseScore, different apps that we can get on our phones, on our iPads such as GarageBand and Soundtrap. And by picking music, I suppose it allows us to develop and learn new skills, whether it be playing the ukulele or the tin whistle, or just even finding that singing voice that you never knew you had.
How is your subject assessed?
So there's a varied approach to the assessment for the new junior cycle music. For the JCPA, the Junior Cycle Profile of Achievement, there are 2 CBA tasks, and these happen during normal class time and will capture, I suppose, knowledge and skill that may not be easily assessed in a written examination. CBA 1 takes place during second year, and this is a composition-based portfolio, and CBA 2 takes place in third year and works alongside our preparation for the practical exam. So this consists of writing a programme note on the pieces that the students will perform at their practical exam. And for both the practical and the written exams, then the SEC will assess, and that happens in third year, as the junior cert, I suppose, as we know it. And the practical examination is worth 30% of the overall mark. So the student will present 3 solo or group songs or pieces, and they can be presented on a combination of instruments. And the standard is based on basically 3 years class-based tuition. Written examination is worth around 70%, and it consists of 1 paper, and it's a common level paper, and the duration of that is 1 hour and 30 minutes. So the difference, like if you pick music going forward, is that in first year we've just kind of had our taster programme of 1 hour a week, and we've only just touched on certain topics that we will be studying in greater detail in second and third year. So in second year music we will have like 3 hours of class time where we build on our learning from first year, and the same then again, of course.
What are the benefits of choosing music as a subject?
I suppose it's a great subject really, because students will develop their imagination and curiosity. They'll explore, they'll experiment and take creative risks, and they will learn to be self-reflective through evaluating and critiquing their own work. All these skills are transferable to every subject, and in general are great life skills for them as they develop into adulthood.
That's really it. Thanks very much for taking the time to come out here and to talk to all the first year students. Yeah, thank you, Miss Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Porter.
Thank you, Miss Johnson. Although many people think it is hard to make a career in music, the annual contribution made by performance arts to the Irish economy is 147 million. Popular degrees in this area are teaching music in dance and performance, theatre and sound and stage production. There are great music degree programs in Ireland, and many colleges, including Maynooth UCC, have great courses. The next teacher I spoke to was Miss Crosby, our business teacher.
Hi, Miss Crosby.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So, Miss Crosby, thanks a million for taking the time out to talk to the first years today.
That's no problem at all, it's my pleasure.
So, what is business like in second and third year?
Yeah, so business in second and third year, you get a little bit more depth in it. So this year so far, my second years have got a chance to start their own business, where they looked into creating a product, and they got to do all like the creating an advert for it and making their own products and trying to sell them, and it's been really good and clever. And they've also had opportunities to create videos where they've been acting out different scenes in business. In third year then they'll get to do a presentation on it as well, so there's like loads of different aspects. We'd hope to have involved maybe one or two more business trips. Actually, my first years are currently been going on a business trip shortly, so to see enterprise in action. Okay. So we're going out to Wheelock, so hope to have a little bit more of that.
Great, so it'll be like a few trips and stuff like that as well?
Yeah, so we try to bring a practical side to business as well, so you're not just learning it from a book, you're going out, you're seeing business in action, like the example of Sir Wheelock in town, where he transformed the fruit farm into a successful business and a restaurant with craft stalls and everything like that. So we try to bring that into business as well, so students can see that side of things. From a practical perspective, it also is really helpful for students to learn how to read a payslip and see whether their taxes are created properly, where they can go to try and get insurance for a car when they're 17 or 18 and they want to start driving. To what kind of insurance do you need to protect for your house? What are your rights when you're a consumer and you're buying stuff online and someone is telling you no, you can't get a refund? So these are all the kind of things that we're learning in business in second and third year. They're going to stand to them regardless of what they want to do in life.
Get a lot of real life practical elements to business as
well.
Yeah,
like it's really practical, and like regardless of whether you want to go to college, you want to do an apprenticeship, you're taking over your family business or farm, there's aspects of that you're going to need. It's one of those subjects that suits everybody across the board because it's practical information that will stand to you no matter what you do in life.
Great. And Ms. Crosby, how is it assessed then? Like, is there CBAs or how does that work?
Yeah, so the way it's split, there are 2 classroom-based assessments. So in second year, we did a group presentation where students worked in groups to come up and create their own business. So that's our enterprise in action. And it spans for 4 weeks. So rather than just being books or lesson-led during those 4 weeks, it's actually practical. You're in research and you're out. We took a field trip up to SuperValue to look at competitors of chocolate bars. They were researching, they were creating videos of themselves, they were of doing their products, they were creating actual products. Then in third year there is an individual classroom-based assessment, which is a presentation on a topic that they feel strongly about. And a lot of the time we try to bring in the wider environment into that aspect with the economic side of it, whereas they could look at like the effects of homelessness or minimum wage in Ireland, or kind of looking at how the world is so much more connected now because we can sit in the comfort of our own home and order something from China or America. So those are the 2 kind of classroom based. And then there is the traditional exam for junior cycle, but it's a more condensed version that's put at common level, and it's still focused a bit on the practical side of things as well.
What would you say to students who are maybe on the fence about choosing business?
Yeah, so I think business is one of the kind of underdogs in the subjects. A lot of kind of sometimes it goes for the more practical side of things, but business is something that is going to stand to you across the board. What you see in first year is only a very small fraction of what you will get to discover as you go through second and third year. You get to have so much practical, like on the ground, researching, finding your own business, learning what you're good at. It's split into 3 sections, which is looking at kind of the financy side of things, whereas in accounts and you're learning to calculate your wages and budgeting and planning for a holiday or decorating your room. There's the more creative side of things, which is your kind of your enterprise, starting your own business, knowing your rights and stuff like that. And then it's the economic side, so that you can see how the wider world is working in terms of money and supply and demand. And there's just a lot more scope for you to specialise and look at what you're really good and passionate about in it. The 2 first year business teachers are myself and Miss Martin, so you can come talk to us at any stage you like, and we can go through with any questions that you might have on it.
Great, Miss Crosby, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to me.
No problem at all, thank you.
Thank you, Miss Crosby. Some of the areas employing business graduates are accountancy, advertising, banking, investment and financial services, general management, HR personal management and public relations. There are also new business degrees in Maynooth and TU Dublin which focus on entrepreneurship. So if you would like to set up your own business, maybe this is the course for you. The next teacher I spoke to was Miss Doyle, our home ec teacher.
Doyle?
Hello, how are you?
Good, not too bad. Thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Okay, so Miss Doyle, I'm just going to ask you a little bit about home ec. So I know there's great interest with home ec with a lot of first years. So what do they expect in second and third year?
Okay, so home economics in first year is all about just kind of learning about healthy eating and how to be kind of a responsible and sustainable person. So that gets carried on into second and third year. The subject itself would be split into 3 domains. So it's kind of food, health and culinary skills, textile and craft, and then responsible family living. So the food, health and culinary skills would be learning about things like nutrition, healthy eating, the food pyramid, and then learning how to maybe plan meals and then make healthy meals in the subject.
Okay.
So in second and third year, we focus more so on like main courses, so how to make dinners that are healthy, how to learn about different special diets and cater to those needs, and a little bit of baking thrown in there as well, but would be mainly main courses in second and third year and kind of trying to progress on the skills from first year. There would be a textile element then as well, so they do a little bit of textiles with us in first year. So in second year they would complete a textile project which would be their CBA 1.
So that's, sorry, did you say that's in second year?
That's in second year.
Okay.
Yeah, so second year they do CBA 1, which is a textile project, and usually it's just a small little, we made Christmas stockings this year, so something small and easy to do, and that's all completed in class. So that's again carrying on from first year skills, and yeah, just kind of learning how to be a sustainable person, how to budget, how to look after money, that kind of thing.
I wish I did home ec.
That's the kind of thing we focus on in second and third year.
Great.
Because the actual exam itself, at the end of third year, 50% of their final grade is from a cooking exam. So third year is all about practicing those kind of key skills and perfecting them then for third year for the practical exam.
I get you. So can you talk to me a little bit about the practical exam? Because anytime I walk past the home ec room, there's like a really beautiful smell and I get really hungry. Theory and practical, or how does that work in home ec?
Yeah, so 50% of our time would be spent doing practical work. So like I said, either craft or cooking. So in second and third year, it's all about practicing the key skills for the practical exam. So like I said, making main courses, learning how to bake, so like dishes like spaghetti bolognese and curries, and then learning how to do baking, so like Swiss roll and scones and that kind of stuff. Maybe learn how to make bread, jams. So it is really diverse in second and third year, and it is more the skills are more advanced than they would be in first year. So it's just kind of continuing on and building on those skills into second and third year. The theory side of it, so 50% of the exam then is the theory, the written exam. So again, we'd focus on things like healthy eating and nutrition, special diets, like how to plan meals, consumer studies, so if you do business it's a good link in there. Learn about like the teeth and digestion and the body, so if you do science there's good links in there with that as well. Learning about craft and how to use a sewing machine in the textile side of it, and then learning about things like food waste and how to be a little bit more sustainable, so that falls into that category then as well. Yeah, like it's a very diverse subject. There's loads of different elements to it, so it's not just focusing on food, it is focusing on other elements as well. And most of the students that pick it seem to really enjoy that kind of diversity. Yes. You know, that one term you could be focusing on practical side of it, doing loads of cooking. The next term you could be focusing on like being a good consumer, and then doing textile craft, and it is very diverse and it always changes. So it is definitely a real life skill, like learning how to look after yourself, learning how to look after your family. I suppose a lot of people come in that they don't have that many skills, so I suppose my job is to have you leaving after junior cert with lots of skills. You know how to cook for yourself, you know how to sew in a button.
All the mammies will be like, take this subject.
Definitely. But no, it is just such a real life subject, and you will probably only realise that when you leave school and you have to do these things for yourself.
Yeah. One of my regrets, Miss Doyle, because when I was in school I thought, it was only for girls, and there was a little bit of stigma.
Yeah.
But what would you say to some lads who might want to do but might be like, oh no, that's a girl, just for girls?
Girls subject. Well, I suppose if you like food, like it doesn't matter what gender you are, to be honest. And most of the boys that do take the subject pick it for the food aspect of it. They'll tell you they don't like the sewing, but when you get into it, they find they do like that as well. But our classes will be very, very mixed. Like, it's not one-sided at all. And we're very lucky in our school that we are a mixed school, so that you can have both choosing it. But no, definitely, if you like food and you like learning about kind of nutrition and learning about the food you're eating and how it's made and how to be more sustainable, then I suppose it is the subject for you. It's a very, very broad subject, and I suppose that's the benefit of it as well, that it's not just theory all the time, that you do have that element of practical, so it changes on a week-to-week basis, so you're never doing the same thing day in, day out. 1 week you could be baking scones, the next week you could be sewing on a button. So it is different, and I suppose that's one of the many benefits of the subject.
So I have many broken buttons, so I'm going to bring them up. Okay, Miss Doyle, where can students come find you, say, if they want to ask any questions about home ec?
I'm there in the kitchen all the time, every single day. So if anyone has any questions or wants more information about the subject, you can call up to me in my room and I'll help you as best I can.
Great. Well, Miss Doyle, on that note, thanks a million for taking your time to talk to me today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Doyle. There are many options for students who love home ec. St Angela's College Sligo is very popular with students who wish to become a home ec teacher like Miss Doyle. This subject suits a practical student who enjoys making things, doing things, and knowing how things work. It is advisable for students opting for Leaving Cert Home Ec to have completed the Junior Cert course. The next teacher I spoke to was Mr. Kyo, our DCG, Design, Communication and Graphics teacher.
Hi, Mr. Kyo.
Hello, Mr. Porter, how are you?
Not too bad. Thanks very much for joining us today.
No problem.
So, Mr. Kyo, I'm just going to ask you a few questions about your subject just for the first years.
Yeah.
Can you just tell me a little bit about your subject? What will they be doing in second year and third year?
Yeah, and I suppose coming from first year, they're learning about a lot of the basics we cover in first year, like constructions and drawing shapes, 2D shapes. And then leading into third year, then our second and third year, we tend to go into, I suppose, more detailed drawings and like say your 3D drawing and stuff like that. And we'd also go down the route of looking at drawing on computers as well. So that's kind of a new I suppose part of the subject in recent years, where students would be expected to draw certain 3D modelling on computers. That leads into the fifth and sixth year nicely then as well, where they'd use the SolidWorks, the 3D modelling program that's used in sixth year and fifth and sixth year.
So there's a lot of computer element to it?
Well, I wouldn't like to kind of be telling people lies either. There's a small element to it, computers, but there's still a lot of traditional board work as well. So the kind of two of them go hand in hand with each other, I suppose.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And Mr. Kyo, how's it marked then? Is there CBAs or how does that
There
work?
is, yeah. There is a CBA in second year and a CBA in third year. And the CBA in second year is I suppose basically around kind of geometry, where you would see it in the world around you. So that's kind of very open-ended CBA. And the CBA then in third year is where you have to actually create drawings of an element. So this year it was a utensil, so they had to get a utensil from home and do a little study on it, look at all the shapes, look at the sizes, and then draw it up. and then they'll have to model that then on the computer as well, so that's all part of it. So it's kind of very much like what you see in the classroom. There'll be a certain amount of board work and a certain amount of modelling then on the computer as well. Yeah, and I suppose I'd always say to people who are thinking about the subject, I often would ask the question in class, where would you use this subject? And I don't want them to mention engineers or architects, because that's what it is traditionally seen as. But we also have the whole area of product design, and there's a very good course actually in Carlow where we had a lecture in here a couple of years ago talking about product design and that whole course there, and it's very interesting actually. And there's other courses then that would always say for entry requirements that the DCG, that's what drawing is called for the Leaving Cert, and the graphics is called for the Leaving Cert. They would say that DCG is advantageous, and those courses will be the likes of your animation or your computer game design. But coming back then to the product design, like when you think about anything that you are wearing or anything that has to be made has to be drawn up. So that's kind of where you might have product design. Yeah, so it leads into a lot of those areas too. Not only architecture and engineering as well,
Yeah, very broad.
Yeah. I'm sure it can be picked up. It's like everything else, like all subjects, I suppose you have to put a bit of work into it, you know what I mean, to improve. Ronaldo still goes and trains every day, even though he's the best footballer in the world. Some might argue, but everything. I've had students who've come into the subject and mightn't have done it for junior cert and picked it up and for leaving cert and really bloomed at it. But I'm sure they've been working and doing a bit of homework in the background. But I wouldn't say any particular student. Obviously some people might think maths is very important. It is important, but other people mightn't be good at maths and might find it easy enough to do as well. So it's kind of hard to pin that to a student, say just because you're good at one particular subject you're going to be good, So I just say, look, like all subjects, if you put your little bit of work into it, keep chipping away with the homework and you fly through it, And the thing I like about the subject is, it's a little bit different that you're it's all drawing. That's what it's all based around, drawing. So it's a little bit different maybe than some other subjects.
And I guess there'll be a lot of even like communication, like students helping other students.
Yes, and with the I suppose the all the technology now in recent years, what I find I'm doing with nearly all my I won't say all my class, but nearly all my classes is that I'm recording everything that we're doing in class. So if we're doing a new topic, new drawing, we record that in class and that's sent out as part of their homework. It's a video link and students can look at that. So that's a great resource for students, and that goes in, when I send out the homework, that video link will go into their folder, their homework folder. So even if they want to go back halfway through the year, they can go into their homework folder and see if they've got homework say around October, and they can do a bit of revision there.
Say if they don't understand, something, they can go back and
rewind.
That's great, actually.
So it's a great resource there. It's a great facility that we have here in the school that we can record all the drawings that we're doing in class.
Perfect, yeah.
So it's I find students in recent years by doing that, it's really kind of aided them in wanting to do. Anyone that wants to do the homework will have that facility there for them.
Great, that's great.
If anyone's ever I suppose wants to ask the questions, like we're like all teachers in the school, we're there, call into us, and if you want to talk about it, we'll go through it with you if you want.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Coe, thanks very much for joining me today.
No worries, Mr. Porter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kyo. DCG is a core element of many third level options, including engineering, product design, construction and architecture. Knowledge of this subject will greatly enhance a student's ability in any third level engineering based program. Other relevant career areas include toolmaking and carpentry. The next teacher I interviewed was Mr. McGrath, our engineering teacher.
If you wouldn't mind just telling me a little bit about the subject and what it's like in second and third year.
Okay, so junior cycle engineering is a new subject now that's replacing what used to be metalwork. The subject now is broken down into two kind of distinct parts, and so far as that we have got a 70% project that students complete in third year, and a 30% exam then that the students will do for their junior cycle exam in the June of third year. So this year's current third years are working on a project which is like a marble run machine, and they're currently coming towards the end of that, and it's all coming together very well for them. We've also got 2 CBAs to do then over the 3 years. So the first CBA, which is CBA 1, and that looks at engineering in action. So students get an opportunity to look at some form of of engineering in their lives. So it could be the likes of an e-scooter or an e-bike, and they can start to get an opportunity to examine the technology and the workings of that, and they present that in a CBA, and that happens in second year. They then have to do another CBA in third year, and that's at the very start of third year, so it's in the first term. That topic for the CBA is given to the students, and they research that topic and they gather some information, and then when their project arrives a couple of weeks after CBA 2 is completed, there'll be a very distinct connection between what they've done in CBA 2 and what their project is going to entail. So there's a design element that's kind of linked in. The subject then is kind of broken down into a number of areas. So one of the new areas that's been brought in for new junior cycle is the whole area of mechatronics. And mechatronics is a sort of a mashup between mechanisms. So we look at gears, pulleys, different drive systems, chain and sprocket, and then we look at electronic ways of actually bringing these together. We're using a little device at the moment called a microbit, and that microbit is a little piece of hardware, but it's controlled by software via a program from the internet, and we can kind of command it to do what we want it to do, and it then is able to start to follow a program. So ultimately we're doing programming in a very simple form. Other aspects then of junior cycle engineering involve design, so where students get an opportunity then to design solutions or to design kind of how to get around a problem and given a constraint and how to be able to work around it. We also then base a lot of our time looking at kind of workshop processes, so I suppose what some people would consider the old sort of metalwork, so in relation to bench skills and bench work using machines. So we use our drilling machines quite a bit, and we use lathes, and we have other pieces of equipment, so that's an opportunity then for students to work on that.
Good practical element in the junior cert.
Absolutely, yes. And for some students it's a real bonus that they like their junior cert doesn't begin in June of third year, because these students have started their junior cert or their junior cycle in essence in October with CBA 2 and then with their project. So by the time it comes around to kind of March, April of third year, like 70% of the marks have already been allocated, so all that's left is the exam, and that's, you know, to a certain extent only worth 30%. So it does take a lot of pressure off students that they don't have to perform on the day in June with an exam that is 100%.
Perfect, Mr. McGrath. I think that's everything. Thanks very much, Mr. McGrath.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Engineering is useful for the following careers: mechanics, panel beaters, welders, plumbers, electronics and mechanical engineering, architecture, aircraft technician, Army and Air Corps, and even industrial design. The next teacher I spoke to was Mr. Doyle, our geography teacher.
Here in Bunclody Vocational College, we teach the new junior cycle geography along with the senior cycle for senior students. The new junior cert geography is made up of 3 strands: exploring the physical world, exploring the people, place and change, and exploring how we interact with the physical world. So the junior cert geography focuses on developing students' knowledge and skills to explore and understand the world around us, our role within it, and recognise the interconnections among systems. This is achieved through those 3 strands, as they're all interconnected. There are 2 CBAs to complete. One is Geography in the News, where you investigate any geographical event in the news or any related geography that's happening in the news. CBA 2 is called My Geography. This is where you investigate how any geographical aspects relate to learning about a geographical process, pattern or system. So and remember, geography is everywhere.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Students must think abstractly and in 3D, so be careful about studying geography if you have any problems with this. Geography can be studied at 3rd level as a science subject or as an art subject. It is useful in a wide variety of careers such as geographical information systems, town planning, environmental science, engineering, travel and tourism, weather forecasting, and in global development. And finally, I spoke to Miss Byrne, our French teacher.
Hi, Miss Byrne.
Hi, how are you?
Tell me a little bit about French in the junior cert, what it's like and how it's assessed.
Okay, so French at junior cycle is, the focus of it is on communication. right? So in the past, French would have been very much, there'd have been a lot of reading and writing and grammar and all that stuff with it. Whereas now there's more of a focus at junior level on the listening and speaking, which is actually a really, really good thing. It is. It's a subject that we do it for 3 hours a week, so we have 3 classes a week in second year and third year, which is a huge step up from the amount of that they do in first year, 1 hour a week. So obviously the workload increases, and they have a lot more homework to do and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's I personally think it's an enjoyable subject. I think it's an important subject to do. I know I'm a bit biased.
In colleges you need a third language, so that's what I'm saying to the first years, that I recommend choosing French, because just in case you want it in college and university.
It's just to keep their options open, because there's very few people know at 12 or 13 years of age what they want to do when they leave school, so it's to keep that option open. But also, rather than just thinking of it as an entry requirement for a course, just maybe they should think, would French benefit me in a career in an area that I might be interested in? So for example, somebody who wants to go down the culinary route, if they want to be a chef, like French is the language of the professional kitchen. People who are interested in doing business, having an extra language is always an advantage there. And actually more and more people who want to work in the gaming industry, having extra language skills is seen as a huge plus now. And for those who want a career in sport, because sport is probably one of the most truly international things we have. So if they want to work abroad in sports management, sports physio, any of those things, it would give the option to them to work even in Europe. You're talking France, Switzerland, Belgium.
Yeah, so I remember when I was in school, I did Spanish, and there was a lot of grammar, a big focus on the grammar. And grammar is something that I would found it quite difficult. But you were saying that there's more of, is it like a kind of speaking and listening element to it?
Yeah, no, obviously we still have to do the grammar.
Grammar is important.
Yeah, so because that's like the nuts and bolts and I suppose getting the skeleton of the language ready. But the focus from an assessment point of view. So we say even with our first CBA, actually the classroom-based assessment, which is done in second year, that is purely an oral assessment. They're assessed on their ability to make a short presentation in French, and they're assessed on their ability to speak, their pronunciation, how understandable they are, etc. Yes, we have to do the grammar obviously, but what I try to do is do the grammar in a way that is just feeding towards speaking it rather than just having it as a language in a book. And is there more interactive technology to learn languages now? Yeah, we tend to use in classes now, the first years would know this already. There's a fabulous app I love called Quizlet, and Quizlet is fantastic as a language learning app for vocabulary, games, testing yourself, flashcards. A lot of students use flashcards as a study aid, whereas Quizlet actually make the flashcards for you online. You can access them on your phone. They're really, really handy, and they're there on every single topic. Now I might add, Quizlet's not just for French, it's there in every subject, but I use it an awful lot in French. I use a lot of YouTube clips. We learn songs. A lot of students would say, like when they get an exchange student would come to stay with them, a Spanish or a French exchange student sometimes comes to stay with the family, they're amazed at their language ability, and they say, how come they're so much better at English than we are at French or Spanish or German? And it's because they're constantly listening to songs.
It's a really good way to learn language.
It's brilliant for your pronunciation.
Yes.
And you actually learn the pronunciation without realising it, because all you're doing is singing along, and particularly for any students who are interested in music, it is it really is a very, very handy tool. There's an awful lot of programs that are available on Netflix even here in Ireland that are
subtitles.
They're subtitles, they're in French, subtitled in English, and certain times during the year, like we do a little focus on a movie that's on Netflix, and then use the movie then to kind of develop our personality adjectives.
There's different ways.
There's lots of ways around it.
It's not just like in a book. It's
exactly. It's moved on a huge amount. I'd always say that probably the most important thing when you're choosing your subject is not so much how good you are at it, but how much you like it. If you enjoy French, then give it a go. keeping your options open. Now I know obviously if it goes up against something that you're really passionate about, then you have a big choice to make. I think this year and last year's first years actually haven't really gotten a chance to see all that French has to offer as a subject because of the fact that the masks have really hindered progress with languages, and like all the Department of Education and all have actually acknowledged this, that it's actually been really, really tough trying to communicate and learn a new language when you can't see the teacher speaking.
Yes.
So what we've done this year, we haven't been able to do a lot of the more fun activities that we would normally do in first year. So if you're on the fence, if things seem to be moving in the right direction where we're going to be moving back closer together, and social distancing and all that mightn't be as big of an issue next year, that we'll be able to do a lot more group projects, pair work, games within the classroom, and that actually is what makes it a much more enjoyable subject.
Great.
Yep.
Miss Byrne, thanks a million for taking the time to talking today. There's a lot
problem.
of valuable information there, and I'm sure the first years will appreciate it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks a million, Miss Byrne.
No problem. Thank you.
It is very important to know that some colleges and courses do have a third level language requirement, so I do advise choosing French just in case. The following colleges require you to have a third language: Maynooth University, NUI Galway, UCC, UCD, Royal College of Surgeons, St Angela's College, NCAD, Shannon College of Hotel and Catering, and the Cadets. You usually don't need a third language for science, engineering and ag science. Usually for most colleges you are exempt from a third language. You just have to check the college course just to make sure. So in general, choose subjects you enjoy. Choose subjects you are good at. Choose subjects you need for your chosen career. And it's important to keep your options open for the future by making a balanced choice. Don't choose subjects because your friends are choosing it. Don't choose a subject just because you like or dislike the teacher. Don't choose a subject without finding out more information about the subject. Don't choose a subject at the last minute. And most importantly, don't panic. Myself and all the teachers are here to help you. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed listening to our teachers and that it helps the process of choosing your subjects. We will be giving more information to all first year students shortly. Feel free to get in touch if you have any questions. Thanks for listening and take care.
BVC Bunclody Vocational College.